Okay, so say you have everything sorted out to bring your visual novel into the world, but you don't quite know how. You can't afford a programmer, or maybe you just want to do things on your own, but there is a lot on the internet to learn about. So let's talk about some of the different engines you have at your disposal, and just a quick disclaimer, there is no way in goddamn hell I'm going to be able to cover every single option available. I'm just going to be covering the main ones. So I'm sorry if your custom engine doesn't make the list. Alright, first up is Ren'Py or Ren'Py, however you pronounce it. But to put it simply, Ren'Py is the industry standard for Western visual novels. It's free for both non-commercial and commercial titles. It's flexible and it's relatively easy to work with. But there is a bit of a learning curve because Ren'Py runs off of Python, and if we're completely honest, the available documentation on the Ren'Py website isn't always the most helpful. However, because it runs off of Python, starts out as a blank slate and can be used with Pygame, which is what a lot of developers use to make the mini games you see in visual novels. This is a relatively versatile engine. Another free engine, Unity is another name that pops up relatively frequently in the VN world. Because Unity is not an engine that is dedicated to specifically visual novels, Unity can grant the kind of customization that Ren'Py just can deliver on. If you want a combat system that interacts with the rest of the story elements, you can do that in Unity. If you want it to be a visual novel 1 minute and an FPS in another, you can make that happen. However, the drawback is that Unity has a very steep learning curve. Unity doesn't rely on a single programming language, but generally the standard is to run it on C# or Boo, and it requires more effort on your part to build every scene. So unless you need to make some super crazy shit happen that pushes the boundaries of the visual novel genre, there's really not much of a reason for you to be delving into Unity, unless it's just something you're already familiar with. There's also Fungus, which is actually a sub-engine of Unity, and it uses a kind of flowchart system to create visual novels while still allowing you to rest with the rest of Unity's features. This is much simpler than Unity itself, but it's not as flexible as Unity because this is meant to be used with little to no little programming knowledge. This is when we start talking about Tyranno Builder. A more basic engine, Tyranno Builder is a nifty little engine that removes the need for programming knowledge entirely. It uses a very colorful visual interface that gives everything its own special spot. You'll obviously need to check out some of the provided tutorials just so you're familiarized with everything, but it's super easy to use and it doesn't require any programming knowledge to make your own visual novel. However, it does support JavaScript and its sister tool TyrannoScript, which is kind of like C++. So if you want to get a little fancy with your animations and your minigames, you can go on ahead. It doesn't have all of the flexibility of the other engines that I've mentioned so far, but you can still create a visual novel that runs through multiple routes with weighted options thanks to their native point system. To use Tyranno Builder, you will have to drop $15 US, and it can be used for commercial and non-commercial products. If you do not have $15 to drop on Tyranno Builder, but you have no intention of learning a programming language, my suggestion is to check out Cloud Novel. It's free and it acts similarly to Tyranno Builder, but it is lacking in some parts and the visual interface is kind of... While you can't create anything like mini-games in Cloud Novel because it doesn't have any scripting options, you can create a basic visual novel with story branches. In comparison to Tyranno Builder, it is much simpler and it is significantly more basic, but I mean it's a free browser software that allows you to make a full visual novel, and it's free for both commercial and non-commercial projects. If you are someone that is just dipping their toes into visual novels, Cloud Novel also has some available assets that you can use to play around with. It's kind of like the perfect beginner engine before they move on to something more advanced. Some people have suggested using Novelty, which is another free visual novel maker that doesn't require any scripting knowledge, but it has an archaic interface and it's still in beta and it hasn't been updated since 2010. It supports C++ and Java for extra customization, but honestly, that's all I know. Finally, I don't have any experience with RPG Maker, but I do know that it can be used for visual novels. To quote a friend that I asked in the Ren'Py Discord, it has a lot of bugs and doesn't come with a built-in tutorial game, so it's one of those engines that you have to search for everything yourself. It's mostly plug and chug, and there isn't a ton of customization. Really, it just kind of seems like RPG Maker would be best for visual novels who want to implement some kind of RPG-like combat system, but don't have the skills to use something like Unity. So that does it for this video. I know I left out a lot of smaller engines, but those are kind of like the main ones where if you are looking to get into visual novels and you start looking for recommendations, those are going to be the options that people are going to give you. There really isn't any incorrect choice. It just depends on your skill set and what you want from your visual novel. What engine you pick isn't really all that important. Like, there's no real wrong answer, there's no right answer. It just depends on what you want from your visual novel. If you want something a little more basic, you can go with Tyranno Builder or Ren'Py. If you want something complex, you can go with RPG Maker and Unity. Anyways, as always, social media as well as my Patreon will be in the description below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video, and remember, the Senpai loves you. Bye!